Hey everybody, it's Party Elite with another episode of Total Breakdown. Today's battle is between Pantirarum's Empire and Cardinal Quartz's Dwarfs. The Empire is led by a general of the Empire in the air with Blood Roar, Foe Seeker, a Potion of Toughness, and Stand Your Ground, while his Grey Wizard comes in the air with the Enfeebling Foe, the Penumbral Pendulum, and Arcane Conduit. 4 units of Greatswords are a standard anti-dwarf pick with their armor piercing, while the Silver Bullets will provide armor piercing range support, and the Demigryph Knights will do a great deal of anti-infantry damage with rear and side charges. The Outriders will look to get early damage in and have an easy time kiting the slow dwarfs, while the Hammer of the Witches will have a field day hitting dwarfs from afar with great accuracy. The dwarfs are led by a Dwarf Lord with Foe Seeker, Deadly Onslaught, and Stand Your Ground. 7 units of Longbeards create a formidable infantry line, while 4 units of Thunderers provide a lot of range support. 3 units of cannons and 1 unit of organ guns is a massive investment into artillery, and can do a lot of work if used well. Alright, as always we're going to start with the conversation about deployment, and while the Empire keeps it relatively simple, the Dwarfs do try something a little clever there with their formation. But first, the Empire. Up front we do have all the great swords over here, your standard infantry line. On either side of them we do have these Demigryph Knights. Again, these guys are without halberds, so they're anti-infantry, and they can come in with flanking maneuvers, rear charges, whatever might be necessary to provide some support to these greatswords. Off to the side here we do have the Silver Bullets. These guys can stalk their way up and get some nice angles so they can open shots off into the rears and the sides of the dwarfs, making sure that they're never obstructed, while all the way back here we do have the Hammer of the Witches able to fire away from the beginning, maybe force the dwarfs to be a bit aggressive, or if not, at least open shots off while the gap is being closed. Then, of course, the General of the Empire as well as the Grey Wizard up in the air, both of them able to dive into melee if necessary, but of course with the Grey Wizard, with his Pendulum, able to, get to the sides and unleash his Pendulum down a line of dwarf warriors. Up front as well, all the way over here, Vanguard deployed, we do have these Outriders again, looking to get some early damage in. They are armor piercing, so we'll do a little bit of work and maybe, kite away, pull away into some safety. Now, let's take a look at the Dwarfs again. Trying something a little clever here, these guys. Up front, you'll see we do have all of their artillery pieces. We've got the cannons and we've got the organ gun, just to make sure they have clear shots right from the beginning and try to get a lot of damage through. Then, on either flank, we have these Wings of Thunderers, and these guys, I think the plan was to sort of push them forward after lines met and hope to fire in the form of a kill box, basically. So, very interesting thinking there, and of course, right back here, we do have all these Longbeards as well as the Lord itself, or himself, I guess, willing to push forward as soon as lines get closer. Again, form this sort of cap here so that these Thunderers can push forward on either side and open clear shots into the rear. So, very interesting thinking there. Let's see how it all breaks down. Now, as we kick it into full speed, you'll see right away, of course, Dwarven artillery able to open shots off from the get-go, and these poor Outriders here on the field on their own are going to start eating shots immediately. So these guys try to dodge the initial shots, but a little too late. A lot of cannon fire coming in, and these guys are falling apart, taking a lot of damage. Their morale is already basically at a quarter full, and their health has dropped by a quarter as well. So these guys, again, just trying to get out of range, try to get out of the cone of fire and pull away, but the cannons do persist, continue to open shots off, forcing these guys to actually rout, and they pull away, they pull straight back so they can actually eat a few more hits from the cannons. Meanwhile, the Grey Wizard, as you can see, is just flying overhead, pushing into position, of course, with the Pendulum, able to get some early damage in, especially with the line so straight like that. And you'll notice also the Dwarfs have actually created a clear space here. They've pulled these Thunderers back so that the cannons can fire in that angle as well to cause some damage to these Outriders. So, pretty good battlefield awareness there, just, staying aware of firing angles and making sure nothing gets obstructed. Meanwhile, of course, the Empire, though it does have artillery of its own, is forced to push forward naturally. It's nowhere near as strong as the quantity that these guys have, the Dwarves, so they do have to push forward, get the Hammer of the Witches in range as well, and open shots off. Meanwhile, you'll see these Thunderers now being sent forward to actually keep the Grey Wizard away, keep him at bay, and make sure that if he ventures too close, he will eat a fair amount of fire. But the Grey Wizard, of course, still looking for an opportunity here, while the Empire is resting just outside range of the cannons, pushing in now, but just resting outside range, waiting for the Grey Wizard to get some action. And now you'll see the Dwarven cannons actually opening shots off at either these Greatswords or the Outriders still. Not the best call. It would be much better to aim at these Demigryph Knights, and you'll see they do start that soon afterwards. The Demigryph Knights are definitely the better target, and meanwhile, while they're firing away, you'll see back here a couple of major mistakes. For one, the Pendulum comes flying through, causing a tremendous amount of damage across the lines. Obviously, it's not it's not got the same potency as a Wind of Death. It doesn't make it all the way to the end of the line, but these first few units have taken a lot of hurt. Another mistake is pulling these Thunderers back. Initially, these guys were fending the Grey Wizard off, but then decided to fall back in line, and as a result of that, the Grey Wizard was confident enough to come in and pop that shot off. Only fractionally too late, these Dwarfs, in responding and pulling back, so unfortunately, they took the brunt of that hit on that left flank there, eating a lot of damage. As you can see, a quarter health off most of these units and just a fifth or maybe an eighth even off these Longbeards over here. And now you'll see the next big mistake is actually pushing these guys forward through the cannon line, forcing these cannons to maybe cause a little bit of friendly fire, have a little bit of trouble firing into the enemy lines as they close the gap as they approach. So a little bit of mismanagement there. Unfortunately, these Thunderers as well falling back now, worried about these incoming Demigryph Knights from the wings while they are being shot up by the cannons here. They're taking, well, that one didn't manage to get any hits in, but the cannons now opening shots off at these Demigryph Knights, a couple of them, while another set open fire in this direction. So again, just trying to spread some of that damage into cavalry on multiple sides, and these Thunderers pulling back as a result. The Hammer of the Witches, meanwhile, opening shots of its own off, you'll see, causing a great deal of damage, destroying that cannon completely, reducing the firepower that the Dwarves have, and now the Dwarves finally decide to pull back into some safety, allowing the cannons to open fire safely, because you will notice the organ gun was obstructed there for a moment. Now able to open shots off again, and this cannon now continuing to open shots at these Demigryph Knights, helping some of these guys dismount there, allowing them to causing a great deal of damage. Meanwhile, on the left flank over here, we've got the Thunderers eating shots from the Silver Bullets because they do have better range. They are armor-piercing as well. Of course, these Thunderers are forced to pull back. Very risky situation there, while the Greatsword's ever so slowly pushing forward, and the Great Cannon continuing to cause a lot of damage here. You can see those Longbeards eating a lot of hurt, while now cannons opening shots off at the general. Now, a big problem here was just not focusing down on any one target. Focus fire can make a huge difference in the battle, and unfortunately these cannons are sort of haphazardly firing here and here and here. If they'd focused down on an enemy target, they would have done a lot better and scared a high threat unit off the field. Meanwhile, you'll see we do have another pendulum coming in from the Grey Wizard, and once more the Dwarfs just too slow on the draw there, not pulling themselves back, allowing the pendulum to come through and again cause a lot of damage to that left flank, unfortunately. Not so much to morale, but to health mainly. The pendulum does a decent amount of work. Again, it's not as powerful as the Wind of Death, but it does the trick, and these great swords still aren't even close. They've barely taken any damage from cannon fire. Meanwhile, we're in a position now where these Demigryph Knights were trying to creep through and try and get a charge into these Thunders, but thanks to the range fire, these Demigryph Knights are actually forced to turn around and pull away into some safety, while these Silver Bullets continue to open shots off at these Thunders over here. And you can see they've taken a fair amount of damage at just below quarter health right now, and the Grey Wizard as well keeping his distance. No need to stay close to those Thunders. They are, of course, very threatening. Meanwhile, you'll see over here we've got these Demigryph Knights all the way to the side over here, and these Demigryph Knights, as I mentioned before, pulling back now into some safety as all of the Thunderers are on that left flank, protecting the left angle of approach. Even these Thunderers over here pushing to the left, while the Great Cannon continues to open shots off, or rather the Hammer of the Witches, I should say, and these cannons here trying to hit the General of the Empire and keep him at bay. Meanwhile, over here you'll see the Silver Bullets continue to cause a tremendous amount of damage to these Thunders, while they actually turn their attention to the Great Swords here. And not a terrible idea. These Great Swords are taking a lot of damage before lines meet. It's not the worst idea, but these Silver Bullets are causing so much hurt, they need to be taken care of right away. And at the same time, you'll see the Dwarfs actually clump in quite a bit, and these Great Swords, as a result, are able to peel away and chase after the Thunderers over here. And as they're doing so, you'll see these Demigryph Knights as well. They get pretty confident. They're able to push in. These Demigryph Knights as well are able to push in and chase after these Thunderers, because these Great Swords now are forcing these Thunderers to fall back under that Silver Bullet fire as well. You'll see these Thunderers now opening shots off at the Grey Wizard. Not the most threatening unit, believe it or not, right now. Instead, these Demigryph Knights that are charging in, they're the bigger problem. These Great Swords as well, trying to get a lot of work done, and doing so. They may not have killed any Thunderers just yet, but they most certainly have broken this formation up, obstructed their fire, made sure they're not able to get any shots in. And meanwhile, you'll see another pendulum coming through here in this massive clump of Longbeards, trying to get some support in for that single unit of Great Swords that's able to hold back 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units of Longbeards that are being completely devastated by that pendulum. We've got these 2 units of Longbeards as well taking a little bit of damage before the pendulum does dissipate, but the frontline engagement really not going in favor of the Dwarfs at all, because they did not micromanage it enough. And you can see these Great Swords, even though they ate a shot from that cannon there and ate a shot there as well, they're able to actually get behind the front lines, get behind the Dwarfs, and of course, as you can probably predict, despite all that cannon fire coming in, they're able to get a nice rear charge in and shut down these Longbeards and cause a fair amount of damage. Meanwhile, back here we do have the General of the Empire himself shutting down some of these organ guns and some of these cannons as well, while the Grey Wizard as well looking to dive in on the cannon over here, cause some hurt and potentially break these guys and stop their fire. They are able to continue firing though, so you will see they do a decent amount of work to these greatswords, but at the same time we do have the Thunders all having fallen apart with those 2 Demogryph Knight units as well as the greatswords sort of peeling away, coming in from multiple directions, forcing these guys to just completely give up. Meanwhile, the Silver Bullets you'll see pushing into a better angle here, just as planned initially, able to get some shots off, while in the middle here we do have Stand Your Ground going down. At the same time, the Enfeebling Foe does go down as well, just to make sure that this one unit of Longbeards is very easily taken care of, while the rest do have their benefits with increased melee defense, of course. Silver Bullets again able to get some shots off while this cannon does persist, getting some damage into these greatswords. The only cannon I think that has done a decent amount of work potentially, but the Demogryph Knights now coming in to seal the deal, try and close that cannon off, while the Longbeards from the front line do pull back now, chasing after, I think, the Grey Wizard potentially. Bad call there. As we know, I've said this countless times, I'll say it really quickly, stay engaged, send something in from the rear. Just like the Greatswords did on this right flank as seen from the Dwarven perspective, or I should say left flank from Empire's perspective, just like the Greatswords came in and peeled around, you can see how much damage was done there. These Longbeards, we had, I think it was 5 units of Longbeards held in place by 1 unit of Greatswords, and that's why deployment zones, deployment length is very important. Your rank and file is extremely important, and you really need to try and come from multiple sides if possible. Over here, these Greatswords, again, 1 unit of Greatswords able to hold all of these Longbeards in place as they're eating shots from the Silver Bullets here, and as this unit of Greatswords now able to get a nice, clean rear charge into these Longbeards and cause a decent amount of damage. The Hammer of the Witches as well, getting some shots off, trying to get some hurt in there while these Demogryph Knights push in, just looking to crumble these guys, and it's working out. These guys are shattering. They're not willing to fight anymore under all that artillery fire against those little demigryphs coming in as well, just not willing to stick and fight, and as a result of that, very quickly you'll see the Dwarfs do begin to completely surrender and depart from the battlefield, let's call it. Now, it's pretty clear that the Dwarf commander maybe isn't the most well-versed with this game, but let's try and be constructive here, and in the comments let's see how we can help the Dwarfs out, because to be honest, they went with a very atypical build, and especially one that doesn't include corner camping or boxing up. It was an adventurous build, so I do want to give kudos for that. Unfortunately though, without Slayers to protect against enemy large units, and without the ability to protect the Dwarven ranged contingent from enemy large units, it was only a matter of time before the range-heavy force was defeated. The Grey Wizard took every opportunity to get damage into the enemy from the start, and if the Dwarves had dodged the pendulums and spent some time trying to get a surround in, they would have stood a chance. As always, make sure you subscribe to this channel for more Total War content and keep sending in those battle replays. I do think it's one of the best ways to learn, and it's a great opportunity to get feedback from the community based on battles that are from the community as well. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you on the battlefield.